Listening to the tape, you do realize that he really will not be back in a minute.
It became very clear that something had happened.
We're going to go out and go ride in the boat.
You knew for sure that whatever the outcome was going to be wasn't going to be good.
I have never in my career heard anyone murdered like that. Cold-blooded, very, very cold-blooded.
"30 miles west of the Gulf Coast, 20-year-old stay-at-home mom Sherry Wolf is expecting a visit from her cousin Renda.
Sherry was a fun person to be around.
Oh, it smells delicious. Here you go, Melly.
And she had a little girl. Her name was Melanie, and Melanie was 2 years old. She very much was a very good mother, and she was very protective of her.
Hey, Renda. Like some lemonade?
Sherry is newly married to local farmer Paul Wolf.
Paul was a sweet guy.
Want a little tapas?
Sherry was his world and his life, and Melanie was his responsibility, and he doted on her as well.
You thirsty, princess? Oh, Mr. Bear.
They got along, they laughed, and they played.
And the couple are expecting a baby.
And how is my little man?
Sherry was excited about becoming a mother again. And this would be hers and Paul's first baby together. So this was unifying her with Paul because they were going to have a child together now.
Sherry's ex-husband and Melanie's biological father is construction worker Billy Staton.
Billy was a fun guy to be around. He was well-liked by pretty much everybody.
Billy and Sherry's marriage didn't last a year, and they divorced before Melanie came along. Billy has visitation every other weekend.
Paul? Hey, Sherry, how you doing? Hello, little one. Oh, you ready to become a daddy?
When Melanie was born, Billy was very excited about it. He did everything he could, be a good father and take care of his responsibilities, but even more than that, he wanted a relationship with Melanie.
We're gonna go to the beach, we're gonna go on the boat.
Billy's new fiancée is 26-year-old schoolteacher Laticia Castro.
There we go, look here. Look who's this? Who's this?
My sister Letty loved Melanie very much. Letty just had that natural gift to care for kids.
She was sweet, she was lovely, she was joyful. She had like music and laughter in her eyes. And she was just a beautiful, beautiful person.
Billy was definitely a little rebellious. Billy needed somebody to ground him, and apparently she was doing that quite well.
With their wedding only weeks away, Billy and Laticia are already planning a family of their own.
Oh, Leticia was looking forward to having her own children because that was the love and joy of her life. And she couldn't wait to marry Billy.
Are you guys ready for the wedding? Oh, yeah.
They had planned for a summer wedding,
I don't think I can wait until August. I'll be honest.
and we were all supportive that this was the right time and that Billy was the right guy, and that Letty had found her soulmate and wanted to spend time with him, and vice versa.
Two weeks later, it's Billy's weekend with Melanie again, and Sherry and Renda are going to church together.
Hey, girl! Oh, I thought the ex had her this weekend. Me too.
When Billy and Letty didn't show up to pick up Melanie, I didn't really know what had happened, but I thought, maybe Billy's getting tired of taking care of a 2-year-old.
Well, that sucks. I know, especially for Melanie, because she doesn't know what's going on.
Late afternoon comes, and Billy hasn't been in contact with any of his family.
That evening, we started getting worried as to where Billy was. We hadn't heard from him, which was out of character because of knowing that it was a visitation weekend. He would normally be reaching out to the family, planning something to do with Melanie.
Letty would always keep in touch on a daily basis with my mom. And when she didn't hear from her that Saturday and even Sunday, she was real concerned. We somewhat dismissed it, thinking that, well, maybe they took off to the beach, that not to worry, that they would probably show up either by Sunday or Monday, no later, because Letty would have to be back to work by Monday. By Monday, when they didn't show up to work, then that's when it became very clear that something had happened.
Armando and his brother Arturo head over to Billy and Laticia's home.
The door had not been locked. Billy? We walked in.
Billy? Billy?
We were kind of mindful of not trying to disturb anything, touch anything, but we just looked around, trying to find some kind of a note or a clue as to what had happened to them.
Billy?
The house is empty. There's no sign of Billy or Laticia.
We wanted to believe that they had taken off somewhere. They had eloped because their wedding was about a month away from then.
Over the next few days, no one hears from Billy or Laticia. Their families contact law enforcement. Texas Ranger Bruce Castile is assigned to the case.
I went over to the house and checked the trailer where Billy and Letty had been living. There was no forced entry. There was nothing to indicate that anything was wrong at that time. But there was just something about the way the trailer was left that does not seem to fit. There was food on the table, clothing laying around. There was no evidence that there had been any sort of a disturbance in the home. There was no blood found. There was nothing to indicate that anything was wrong at all. There was just something about the way it was left that always indicated to me that they were planning on coming back to the trailer.
Ranger Castile has learned from Billy's family that on the weekend of his disappearance, Billy was supposed to pick up his daughter Melanie from his ex-wife Sherry.
I went to see Sherry and Paul. I wanted to find out if they knew anything about Billy and Letty not showing up.
Can I help you?
Bruce Castile, Texas Ranger. May I have a word?
Sure, have a seat.
Thank you. All around?
Yeah, he's in the field with his pa.
I understand Billy Staton was supposed to come past here last Friday to pick up the child.
She said no, they did not show up at all. No one came.
I don't know what happened. To be honest, I'm kind of glad to say they didn't come.
Why's that?
because it upsets her.
She said there was a lot of conflict between she and Billy Staton over Melanie.
Paul? Hey, Sherry. Hello, little one. Oh, you ready to become a daddy? Huh? Don't be like that.
Don't you want to go with Daddy?
Sherry told me that Melanie didn't want to go with him each time he would come over to pick her up. And they would get into a terrible argument.
You put her up to this. Cover your ears, Miss Widow. You did this!
Look what you've done.
What do you mean, look what I've done? No, cover your ears.
And it just escalated each time.
We've tried getting the courts to intervene. She's scared of Billy.
So he never turned up?
No. We waited and then we took Melanie to my mom's.
She was very open. She seemed very straightforward about her answers.
Well, thank you for your time. And the tea.
It's 11 days since anybody has heard from Billy or Laticia, and investigators have no new leads. But as a crop duster flies low over Texas farmland, something unusual catches the pilot's eye. Police are looking for Billy Staton and Laticia Castro, who have been missing for 11 days. Now, a local pilot has spotted an abandoned vehicle in the middle of farmland.
I immediately went out to where this location was at.
The car appears to have run off the road.
The license plate registration was run, and we knew immediately that it was Billy Staton's vehicle.
Well, let's get it out of there.
When I looked inside, there was no bodies in the car. But I found a large rock on the accelerator, which indicates that it was intentionally run off into the drainage canal. Well, the car was in really bad shape. It had been burned inside, and a lot of mud spread all over the car, inside and outside. I knew that whoever did this were trying to destroy any evidence that may be there inside the vehicle.
Gilbert hears on the radio that his brother's car has been found.
Gilbert, I'm sorry, we can't have you here.
I drove out, and yeah, quite stressful, because at that point you knew for sure that whatever the outcome was going to be wasn't going to be good, and that just cemented the, raised questions, but gave a lot of answers already that weren't good.
After finding the vehicle, we knew then that this investigation was taking a bad left turn, so to speak.
Authorities mount a massive search operation.
We had well over 100 officers searching cars, foot, horses, any way that we could search. It was probably one of the biggest searches I'd ever been involved in at that time.
However, pinpointing two people in such a vast area of dense countryside is a huge challenge.
Police are appealing for any information about the disappearance of Billy Staton and Laticia Castro, who were last seen on Friday, July 16th. If anyone has any information, they can call the dedicated police tip hotline on 555.
It was big news. We live in a small community and people talk and everybody's going, where's Letty? Where's Billy? What happened to him? No one knew where they were.
We just kind of kept praying and hoping that they would surface, that they would somehow reappear. There was nothing we could do but wait. That was it.
Calls pour into the police hotline, including a tip about a local resident.
One day, an individual called in and said that he had information on the disappearance of Billy Staton and Letty Castro. The informant said that the man involved was a Glenn Wayne Henderson.
18-year-old Glenn Wayne Henderson has no criminal record and no obvious connection to the missing couple, but investigators want to know more. While police look into Henderson, Ranger Castile gets a surprising new lead involving Billy's ex-wife.
I received a telephone call from a lady that was the manager of the home where Sherry and Paul Wolf had been living. And she said that they had moved out. That was something that set off an alarm in my mind. Why would these people all of a sudden move out of that house? I talked with a judge and a district attorney, and we issued a search warrant for the home. When I went into the house, there was a piece of carpet in the living room. And underneath, there was a large pooling of blood. And all on the walls, there was dried blood on the door frames, curtains, along the edge of the trim of the floor. By looking at the numerous blood spatters all over the living room. This is not caused by a gunshot, nor is it caused by a knife. It's caused by someone slinging something like a bat or something and hitting someone, possibly in the head.
While the scene is being processed, Ranger Castile receives a call from Assistant District Attorney Kirk Brush.
Bruce Castile?
Kurt said that he had talked to an attorney in Harlingen by the name of Jim Martis. Jim Martis had a client that would confess to the murders of Billy Staton and Letty Castro.
Don't get him talking till I'm there.
It's over 3 weeks since Billy Staton and Laticia Castro disappeared, and Texas Ranger Bruce Castile has discovered what looks like the scene of a violent crime. Meantime, a man has come forward who claims to be involved.
Kirk, how are you?
Pleasure.
You really telling me we got someone who wants to confess to this?
Yes, apparently.
I was elated.
Well, I'll be.
To hear something like this about a defense attorney bringing in a client to confess to a double homicide is almost unheard of. I mean, it's just difficult to believe that this is actually occurring.
Hi.
Bruce Castile.
Jim Martis.
How you doing?
Hey, Kirk. You all right? So, are you guys ready for him?
Sure.
Yes.
Gentlemen, Mr. Paul Wolf.
Looking at Paul Wolf, he was just a young, clean-cut looking individual.
Paul, my name is Bruce Castile. I'm a Texas Ranger. Now, before we start, I'd like to remind you of your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law.
After I had given Paul Wolf his Miranda warning, I asked him to start telling me what had occurred.
I understand you want to tell us something about these two missing people we're talking about. Billy Staton and Laticia Castro?
Just start from the very beginning, Paul. The very beginning.
Paul begins to account the events of Friday, July 16th.
I got home at 6 o'clock. Sherry wasn't there. She was waiting for Billy to come pick up Melanie, and he didn't show.
Paul started telling me that Billy came with Letty to pick up Melanie.
And when he did arrive, he came storming up to the gate.
I'm sorry. Fine, I'm here. Where is she?
I'm sorry, man. She waited, but Melanie started getting upset, and then Sherry decided she's going to take her to her mother's.
Paul told Billy Staton that Sherry and Melanie had already gone to her mother's house.
Bill?
I'm about ready. Your ass.
Bill?
Okay?
He just stormed past me into the house.
Billy really wanted to be sure that Melanie wasn't there.
Just
Please. Sherry! Sherry, where you at? Sherry, where you at?
Okay, Bill, just relax, okay? I can try to give her a call.
Call?
And I try to call her. Right there. Just give me a second.
I'm waiting.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Bill, but the line's busy. Okay?
He said that Billy became very angry and attacked Paul Wolf.
Hey, Bill! He tried to choke me, knocked him to the ground, and
He picked up an iron bar that he had near the front door.
I brought it down and hit him on the head. He just didn't get up.
Paul Wolf was claiming self-defense.
What happened with Laticia?
She heard this, and she ran in.
He said that Letty apparently had heard the struggle and the fight going on in the house. And she attacked him.
What did you do?
Letty! I was so scared, I didn't know what to do.
And he had to defend himself against Letty. And he beat her with the bar.
I drove down the Dukes Highway, and down where my daddy has some land.
Paul Wolf was really panicking about what had occurred here, and that he knew that he needed to get rid of the bodies because he just couldn't imagine being charged with murder or his family being involved in something like this.
Now, if I took you out there, would you remember the place?
Yes, sir.
Paul Wolf told us that he would lead us to the location of Letty Castro and Billy Staton's bodies. And I said, let's go.
Paul leads investigators to a remote spot, several miles from where Billy Staton's car was found.
When we arrived at the location, I walked from the edge of the road down to the drainage canal. You could see Letty's body floating in the canal, face down, badly decomposed. The skull had been fractured and a piece of the skull was missing. Then, something else catches Ranger Castile's eye. Laying on the embankment was a 20-gauge yellow shotgun shell that had been fired. We had heard nothing from Paul Wolf during our interview with him concerning a shotgun or a shotgun being used. Then we were directed from the location of Leticia Castro's body to where Billy Staton's body was located.
Billy's body is submerged in the drainage canal and is badly decomposed.
As I'm looking at the body,
Mom, what's that?
I can see an outline of a square little box underneath Billy's shirt. Taped to the body was a tape recorder. It was in pretty bad shape. Looking at the recorder, you could tell that the button had been pushed down. It looked like that the tape had been recording on Billy Staton's body.
Deep in the East Texas marshland, police have recovered the bodies of Billy Staton and Laticia Castro. A tape recorder found hidden underneath Billy's clothing may have recorded his death.
This tape recorder had been on Billy Staton's body in this canal for about 3 weeks or more. We sent the tape off to the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get any type of evidence off of the tape.
While investigators wait to find out, Billy's lawyer explains to police why Billy was wearing the recorder.
Billy was having post-divorce issues with Sherry. He was complaining about problems accessing his child.
Paul? Hey, Sherry. Hello, little one. Oh, you ready to come with Daddy? Hey? Oh, don't be like that.
Don't you want to go with Daddy?
It was sort of a he said, she said situation because she would always say that he was late or was abusive.
Maybe you should come back in 2 weeks.
Oh, please, Sherry. I barely get enough time to see.
And he would say, no, I got there on time and I was polite.
She'll stay with me if she wants to.
I suggested that he wear a recording device of some type. And if Sherry comes up with a different version and says that if you were abusive, then you've got proof that you were not.
I think you should go.
See you around. Have a good day.
About a week after the tape was sent to the FBI laboratory in Quantico, I received a telephone call from the technician that was working on the tape. And he said, "Mister, you better sit down. You're not going to believe what's on the tape."
Ranger Castile cues up a copy of the FBI restored recording.
The first sounds you hear are in a car, and you hear Billy Staton say to Leticia Castro,
I'll be back in a minute.
The tape has recorded Billy going to pick up his daughter Melanie.
He then walks across up onto a wooden porch, knocking on the door, and Paul Wolf says,
Come in. Hello, little one. Good.
Hearing Melanie on the recording immediately contradicts Paul's account of that day.
Paul was saying that Sherry and Melanie had already gone to her mother's house, but a lot of that statement he gave us that day was not truthful.
We're gonna go out and go ride in the boat. And go swimming. Don't you want to go play in the water? Huh? 'Cause
Well, it's obvious from the tape that Melanie does not want to go with Billy. It does sound like Sherry was right.
How come you changed your mind? Yeah. The water feels so good. We're gonna take some sandwiches and have a picnic.
As the recording continues, Billy doesn't lose his temper, and Melanie seems to be coming around.
We'll have a lot of fun in the boat. She's outside waiting for you. She's gonna go too.
All of a sudden you hear this sound, and I played that back, trying to understand what in the world is that sound.
She's outside waiting for you. She's gonna go too.
It was Billy Staton being struck in the head. You can hear Melanie screaming, sitting there witnessing what's going on with her father. Paul Wolf is claiming self-defense on what occurred to Billy Staton, that he was defending himself and he ended up killing Billy Staton.
But the audio recording tells a different story.
There was no struggle or a fight. The recording contradicted most everything that Paul Wolf said. Suddenly you can hear male voices, and one of them says, well, when I heard that, I knew that there was another man in the room also, not just Paul Wolf. Someone else was there with Paul.
And it's a name Ranger Castile has heard before. Police have discovered the bodies of Billy Staton and Laticia Castro. Billy's ex-wife's husband, Paul Wolf, has admitted to killing them, but claims self-defense.
The statement was that he was attacked by both victims, and during the course of the attack, he had to kill both victims to keep them from hurting him.
However, an audio recording of the incident reveals that another man was there. Glenn Wayne Henderson's name was generated through the police tip hotline. Ranger Castile questions him about his relationship with Paul and Sherry Wolf.
Tell me, how long have you known Paul Wolf?
I have a sister that went to school with him. I know his dad and his brothers.
Do you know his wife, Sherry?
I met her about 3 weeks after they got married.
Glenn was obviously someone that could be easily used. He was not the most intelligent, well-educated young man I've ever seen.
Why don't you tell me about the first conversation you had with Paul, about the trouble he was having with Billy regarding Melanie?
One time he told me that he didn't like the boy and that he was causing them a lot of trouble and that he wanted to get rid of him, that he wanted to kill him.
He told me Paul Wolf was getting tired of Billy Staton, and they were planning on just absolutely taking Billy Staton's life.
He told me he wanted to get rid of the boy and take him and put them in the canal, and then take his car and then ride it into the canal and burn it up.
And was this quite a few months before that he said this?
Yes, sir.
What Glenn Henderson was saying was absolutely premeditated murder. There was no doubt about that.
He asked me if I would, help get rid of him.
Glenn's confession helps explain what is in the audio recording. However, the tape reveals one more shocking truth.
I heard this voice on the tape saying,
It's a voice that Ranger Castile recognizes.
I knew that that was Sherry Wolf. I knew that Sherry Wolf then was not at her mother's house. During questioning of Glenn Wayne Henderson, I asked him about Sherry being present.
She was sitting on the couch.
He said she was sitting there with Melanie, and she knew what was coming. She knew what was about to happen.
Did she see Paul hit Billy?
Yes, sir.
We know now who are responsible for the murders of Billy Staton and Letty Castro. The murder of Billy Staton had been planned for months. Sherry Wolf despised him, hated him, in fact. Sherry decided to kill Billy Staton to have full custody of Melanie.
Sherry Wolf, Paul Wolf, and Glenn Wayne Henderson are arrested and charged with first-degree murder. In court, the prosecution combines the evidence on the tape and Glenn's confession to map out in brutal detail Billy and Laticia's final moments.
The day that Billy Staton was murdered, he arrives at Paul Wolf and Sherry Wolf's home. You do realize, listening to him say,
I'll be back in a minute.
that he really will not be back in a minute.
Go hide in the bedroom.
A lot of wind blowing that day.
Billy comes as usual to pick up his daughter, not suspecting anything.
Hello, little one. Good.
Sitting there with Sherry Wolf. And the child was being used as bait to get Billy to sit down and talk to her.
We're gonna go out and go riding the boat. You go swimming, don't you wanna go play in the water?
At the time, Glenn Wayne Henderson is in a bedroom behind where Billy is sitting.
How come you changed your mind? Yeah. The water feels so good. We'll go take some sandwiches and have a picnic. We'll have a lot of fun in the boat. She's outside waiting for you. She's gonna go too.
With Billy down, Paul heads outside to kill Laticia.
He walks up to the car, which would not necessarily be of concern to Laticia since she's been to the house before.
Glenn follows close behind, picking up a hammer Paul had hidden earlier.
He proceeds through the car window to beat her to death with a hammer.
Paul and Glenn head back into the house to deal with Billy.
You can hear Sherry coming back into the room and says, Sherry Wolf was really the instigator of this entire murder. This would have never happened had it not been for Sherry Wolf.
Smell it, Glenn?
With Letty still in the front seat, Billy Staton's body is placed in the trunk.
Paul drives Billy Staton's car. Glenn Henderson gets in his car to follow to dispose of the bodies in the car.
From the recording, investigators know that Billy is still alive in the trunk of the car.
A lot of tears flowed from jurors when they heard that.
As Paul and Glenn drive out to dispose of their victims, it's believed that Billy finally succumbs to his injuries. However, the tape is still recording, and it reveals one more grisly detail.
They discover that Laticia, while gravely wounded, is not dead.
In his confession, Henderson admits that he was the one to take Laticia's life.
Glenn shot Letty in the back of the head with the shotgun. Listen to that tape. You can hear the shotgun go off.
The coroner's report confirms that the gunshot wound in Laticia's head is consistent with a 20-gauge shotgun. A firearm matching that description is recovered from the trunk of Henderson's car.
That tape, there was no doubt. It was just an astounding piece of evidence.
Paul Wolfe, Sherry Wolfe, and Glenn Wayne Henderson are found guilty of murder. They are all sentenced to life imprisonment.
It would have been amazing if they had come back with anything other than first-degree murder, because the tape is so clear as to what's going on at the time the murders happened.
The family has suffered so much, especially Mother. We've all stood by and prayed so hard, and thank God that justice has been done. But it's still painful that our sister's no longer with us.
It was just totally unnecessary. It affected more people than they can imagine. Yeah.
Letty still lives in our minds and our memories and our hearts. She may be gone, but she's very much present all the time. We think of her. We love her.
If my brother was alive today, I think he would have had a lot of kids. Probably with Letty, I kind of think that would have probably happened. But, we'll never know. Well, you never forget it. You never, all right, I'm about